The storm before the rise, the night was heavy. The arena lights burned down like fire, and thousands of eyes locked on the cage where Raja Jackson stood. Sweat rolled down his face before the first punch had even been thrown. People thought it was just nerves, but deep inside, Raja carried something heavier than any glove, any opponent, or any championship dream. He had trained for months for this fight. The fans cheered his name, but not everyone cheered for him with love. Some came to see him lose, some to mock him, some to say he was finished. And in that noise, Raja felt a silence inside, a silence that came from pain he had carried for years. The bell rang. His opponent came out strong, sharp fists cutting through the air like blades. Within minutes, Raja was cornered, his body taking blows that shook his balance. He stumbled, fell against the cage. The crowd gasped. Commentators shouted, "Raja Jackson might not survive this round." Suspense filled the hall. Every second looked like the end. But while his body weakened, his mind remembered. He remembered his mother working long hours, her hands rough from labor, just to buy his first pair of training shoes. He remembered the nights he slept hungry, whispering to himself that one day he would feed his family with pride. He remembered the insults from those who said he would never make it, that a boy from a small street could never stand in the center of the MA world. And in that moment, lying on the mat, he did not hear the boos or the cheers. He heard only her voice. "Stand up, Raja. You are stronger than this." He rose. The fight turned brutal. His face was marked with blood, his breathing heavy, but his eyes had fire. And though the round ended with him struggling, the crowd saw something shift. They didn't see a man broken. They saw a man refusing to bow. But the real fight was not just in the cage. Outside, Raja's life had been a storm. From his childhood in a rough neighborhood, to the days he slept in gyms because he couldn't afford rent, to the humiliation of being laughed at when he walked into big training camps, Raja had carried scars no one could see. Yet through it all, he never lost his kindness. When he earned his first small paycheck, he didn't buy new clothes. He bought medicine for a neighbor. When he finally got recognition, he chose to stay humble, shaking hands with the same people who once doubted him. This was the transformation the world never expected. A fighter known for his rage inside the cage, showing a heart of gold outside it. Still, on that night, as blood dripped from his face and the crowd questioned if he had anything left, no one knew what was about to happen. The suspense wasn't just about the fight. It was about the man Raja Jackson was becoming. Because sometimes the greatest battles are not about winning or losing a match, but about showing the world who you really are when everything is against you. And for Raja, this fight would not only test his fists, but his soul. The bell rang for round 2. The crowd leaned forward. The world held its breath. The weight of the past. The bell rang again, and round 2 began. Raja Jackson lifted his arms, his vision blurred, but his heart steady. His opponent came forward with the same aggression, throwing wild combinations, meant to break him down. The crowd roared, some shouting for the end, others whispering that maybe this was the moment Raja would rise. But what no one in the arena could see was the storm inside his chest. Every strike that landed didn't just hit his body, it awakened old wounds. He thought of the nights he spent sleeping on gym floors, using his backpack as a pillow. He thought of the times promoters told him he wasn't marketable, that he didn't have the face of a champion. Each insult was a punch, each rejection a kick, and then another memory struck, one that always tore at him. His father's absence. As a boy, Raja waited at windows, hoping to see a figure returning home. But the door never opened. He learned young that not all families stay whole. He carried that emptiness, even when the cameras called him a warrior. Suddenly, a clean strike hit him and Raja fell to his knees. The referee leaned closer, ready to stop it. The world thought this was the end. But then, in the middle of pain, a new thought entered his mind. What if I quit now? What will the kids who look up to me think? Because over the years, Raja had become more than a fighter. He had become a symbol. He often visited schools talking to children about resilience. He told them to never give up, no matter how heavy life felt. If he stayed down now, his words would mean nothing. He clenched his fists, pushed against the canvas, and stood again. The arena erupted, not because he won the round, but because he refused to surrender. His opponent grew frustrated, punching harder, but Raja began to defend smarter. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He breathed, waited, and when the chance came, he struck back with a clean counterpunch that shook the entire cage. The crowd gasped. Suddenly, the tide looked like it could turn, and as the round ended, something remarkable happened. Instead of mocking or doubting, people stood to their feet. They clapped. They cheered not for brutality, but for resilience. They saw a man who had every reason to fall, yet chose to rise. Outside the cage, this was the same man who paid for strangers' groceries when he had little money himself. The same man who gave his fight bonuses to charities for kids without fathers. He carried pain, but he turned it into kindness. That night was not just about Raja fighting an opponent. It was about Raja fighting his own shadows. And in those shadows was something else too. A recent memory. Just weeks before this fight, in another ring, he had faced humiliation. One brutal match where he was beaten badly, commentators said he was finished. Social media mocked him, spreading clips of his fall. Some fans abandoned him. That memory haunted him still. But as he walked back to his corner after round 2, blood on his face and fire in his eyes, Raja knew this night was different. This was not just another fight. This was his redemption, because, in life, every person faces moments where the world tells them they are done. But it is in those very moments that the truth of who we are is revealed. Raja Jackson was ready to reveal his truth. The bell for round 3 waited. Suspense filled the hall again. The heart of a fighter. The bell rang for round 3. The cage door closed and the sound of the crowd faded into a heavy silence in Raja Jackson's mind. His body ached, his ribs burned, but something deeper carried him forward. He was no longer fighting for victory alone. He was fighting for meaning. His opponent charged again, confident that Raja was on the edge of collapse. The punches came fast, but this time Raja moved differently. He blocked. He slipped. He countered with sharp precision. It wasn't perfect. He still absorbed damage, but every time he got hit, he returned stronger. The commentators grew louder. This man refuses to quit. But for Raja, this wasn't about proving toughness. It was about proving humanity. Outside the cage, Raja had already shown who he was. Reporters often missed it, but fans who truly followed him knew. He stayed, humble in every interview, thanking not only his coaches but the janitors who cleaned the gym. He never looked down on anyone. After every fight, win or lose, he shook the hands of his opponents with respect. Once, after defeating a rival, he donated part of his purse to the rival's injured brother, surprising everyone. When asked why, he simply said, "Because winning means nothing if you forget kindness." Inside the cage that night, that same spirit returned. Every blow he took became a reminder of why he fought. He wasn't just a fighter. He was a son carrying his mother's sacrifices. He was a father figure to kids who had none. He was a man who understood that pain could be turned into hope. The third round unfolded like a storm. Both fighters traded punches, sweat and blood spraying under the bright lights. Suspense tightened the air. Every strike looked like it could end the fight. And then, it happened. Raja caught his opponent with a clean hook, followed by a sharp knee that sent the man staggering back. The arena exploded. Raja didn't rush, to finish recklessly. Instead, he paused, eyes steady, breathing calm. He respected the warrior standing in front of him. The round ended with the crowd on its feet. No one cared about the scorecards anymore. They weren't just watching Emma. They were watching the story of a man's soul. When Raja returned to his corner, his coach whispered, "This is your moment. But remember, you are already winning, no matter what happens." Raja closed his eyes and thought of his family, the children he inspired, the people who once laughed at him. He thought of how far he had come from those streets where he was just a boy with broken shoes and an unbroken dream. And in that quiet moment between rounds, he realized something. Fighting wasn't just about survival. It was about teaching the world that no matter how hard life hits, kindness, humility, and resilience always strike back harder. He opened his eyes. His breathing slowed. The cage no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a stage where his truth would shine. The bell rang for round 4, and Raja Jackson stood, ready not just to fight, but to inspire. The breaking point. The bell for round 4 echoed like a drumbeat of destiny. Raja Jackson stepped forward, his body battered, his eyes steady. The crowd's noise faded again into that quiet place inside him where only purpose lived. His opponent looked frustrated now. The man had thrown his best shots, yet Raja still stood. Anger filled his strikes, and the punches came wild, heavy, desperate to break Raja's will. One blow landed hard on Raja's jaw, snapping his head sideways. The crowd gasped. Another punch dug deep into his ribs, forcing the air from his lungs. His knees almost buckled. The referee leaned closer, watching carefully. This was the breaking point. But Raja knew something about breaking. He had been broken before. By hunger, by rejection, by humiliation. He had walked streets where people told him he was worthless. He had faced nights when he questioned if he would ever escape poverty. He had been laughed at when he spoke of dreams too big for a boy with nothing. And yet, every time life tried to break him, he had risen stronger. So he stood tall now, even as his vision blurred, even as his legs trembled. He remembered that recent night when people said his career was over, when clips of him falling spread across the internet like fire. He remembered the cruel laughter, the headlines that called him finished. He remembered the shame he carried home that night, sitting alone, staring at his bruised reflection. He remembered the tears he refused to let anyone see, but he also remembered what happened next. The messages from children. "Raja, you told us never to quit. Please don't quit." The letter from a single mother. "My son looks up to you. When you rise, he rises too." The quiet words from his own mother sitting beside him, holding his hand. "Son, one loss does not define you. Your kindness does." Those voices carried him now, louder than the punches hitting his body. Suddenly, his opponent swung too wildly, leaving an opening. Raja's instincts took over. He ducked, stepped forward, and landed a clean strike that shook the arena. The crowd exploded with sound, a roar of disbelief and hope. But Raja didn't chase. He didn't lose control. He fought with patience, with heart. The round turned into a war of wills, two men pushing past pain, testing each other's spirit. As the final seconds ticked down, the suspense grew unbearable. Both fighters stood toe-to-toe, exchanging heavy shots. The bell finally rang, and the crowd erupted into applause. Raja walked back to his corner, blood dripping, chest heaving. Yet in his eyes there was something calm, something unshakable. His coach leaned close, whispering, "Listen, this is not just a fight anymore. This is your story. The world is watching, and they see the real Raja Jackson tonight." And in that moment, Raja realized, even if he fell in the final round, he had already won something far greater than a title. He had won respect. He had won hearts. He had proven that humility, kindness, and resilience shine brighter than any spotlight. The camera zoomed in on his face, and the world saw not just a fighter. They saw a man who had turned pain into power, struggle into strength, and doubt into inspiration. The bell for the fifth and final round waited. The arena held its breath. The final bell, the cage door shut for the last time. Round 5. The crowd stood, restless, waiting for an ending they would never forget. Raja Jackson wiped the blood from his brow, raised his hands, and stepped forward. His opponent, still strong, still dangerous, came charging like a storm. Fists flew. Heavy kicks landed, each strike echoing with the weight of victory or defeat. But Raja no longer fought with fear. Every breath he drew was calm, every movement controlled. He wasn't just reacting. He was writing his story with every punch, every block, every step. The suspense was unbearable. Commentators shouted, "Raja could still lose this." The audience leaned in, eyes wide, hearts racing. Then came the moment. A wild swing from his opponent left an opening. Raja slipped, countered with precision, and landed a crushing combination. The impact shook the arena. His opponent stumbled back, dazed, barely standing. But Raja did not rush to finish. He paused, watching his rival with respect. And in that pause, something remarkable happened. The crowd grew silent. They understood. This was not about destroying an opponent. This was about honoring the fight, honoring the struggle, honoring the spirit of resilience. The final seconds ticked down. The bell rang. The fight was over. Both men stood, exhausted, bloodied, but unbroken. They embraced in the center of the cage. Two warriors bound not by rivalry, but by respect. The referee raised Raja's hand. The arena erupted in thunderous applause. But Raja didn't raise his fists high in pride. Instead, he bowed his head humbly, pointing to the crowd, then to his heart, as if to say, "This victory belongs to you, to all who never give up." Reporters rushed in, microphones ready, asking how it felt to win after such a brutal battle. Raja's voice, hoarse but steady, carried through the speakers. "This fight wasn't about me proving I'm the strongest. It was about proving that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you can always stand again. We all fight battles, inside the cage, outside the cage. What matters is that we keep fighting and we keep showing kindness along the way." Tears welled in the eyes of fans. Parents hugged their children. People who once doubted him now clapped with pride. And somewhere in the crowd, a young boy with torn shoes watched with shining eyes. He whispered to his mother, "If Raja can do it, maybe I can too." Raja left the arena that night not just as a winner of a fight, but as a symbol of hope. His story had traveled from the streets of struggle to the brightest lights of the world stage. He had shown that respect can silence arrogance, humility can outshine pride, and resilience can turn pain into purpose. And when he finally sat alone, away from the cameras and the noise, he smiled quietly. Not because he had won a belt, but because he had stayed true to himself. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not over another person. It is over the doubts, the fears, and the darkness inside us. Raja Jackson's fight ended that night, but his story had just begun.